Back by Night is a newly released Roblox ASIM game that you may or may not have heard of. It's similar to Forsaken and Dead by Daylight, and it's got a Five Nights at Freddy's theme. I didn't actually know that this game was a thing until like a week ago, so that when it dropped the other night, I was very blown away by how many people were playing it and how much it'd blown up on the website. Like, there were like 200,000 people playing this game. So I decided to play it for myself, and I absolutely understand the hype. It's very well put together. However, after playing it, I noticed a lot of areas of improvement. There were a lot of issues I had with the game, but I think a lot of that could be addressed. Anyway, I'm going to talk about it in this video. On release, the game has 3 killers, Springtrap, the Mimic, and the Enid, and 4 survivor classes, the Fighter, the Medic, the Customer, and Security Guard. As of writing this script, I've only played as Springtrap so far, so I don't know about the gameplay of the other 2 killers, but from what I've played against, and the really vague descriptions I've read, they seem interesting in their own ways. All of the survivor classes are relatively well designed. I think some have more issues than others, but they're all what you'd expect. The Customer's a survivalist, the Medic and Security Guard support, and the Fighter. You're never going to guess what the Fighter does. Yeah, he fights the killer. Well, he stuns the killer, to be more accurate. They all have 2 abilities, so it's relatively easy to digest from gameplay. The descriptions, they're so vague. So you pretty much have to just go in blind if you want a chance. You collect the currency called scraps in order to buy characters and buy classes. It's relatively easy to get. You get it by winning matches, doing objectives, everything you'd expect. The gameplay is pretty simple. Again, like I said, it's like Dead by Daylight and Forsaken, so if you've played those, you've basically played this game. You need to wait until the time reaches 6 AM, and then the exit opens on the map. I don't know how long the exits are open for, because every time one got opened, I always made it to it in time. I'm gonna assume it's like an hour of in-game time, or maybe like 30 minutes. I think the time system definitely helps the killer a lot more. I had a match that lasted like 8 minutes, even though no one dies and all the objectives were done relatively quickly. Going into the specifics, Survivor gameplay is, again, like the Survivor gameplay in any other ASIM, you need to avoid the killer with an emphasis on stamina management. However, there are elements of hiding in this game that you don't see in others. You can crouch, which basically just makes you kneel down and walk slow. It's pretty generic. This pretty much just means that both survivors and killers need to pay attention to the other party's position in order to give themselves an advantage. There are objectives for you to complete, but there's only 2 unique ones. First of all, generators. Basically, you do a wire task, and then you flip a bunch of switches, and then you tug on this thing, and boom, you've done it. You have to do that like 4 times. Then there's the battery task. Now, we all like the battery task. Basically, you find a battery in the map. I couldn't actually get any footage of it, but I found this brave soldier carrying one. You have to carry a battery to a position on the map. It will be highlighted for you once you've picked up the battery, though, so it's not that bad. The only thing is that once you've picked up the battery, you can't drop it, from what I understand. And also, you can't run when you have the battery in your hand, so you just kind of awkwardly walk towards the point. The only way to drop the battery is by getting hit, so you need to pay attention to where the killer is. Killer gameplay is killer gameplay. You find the survivors and you kill them. You need to have good pathing when moving around the map in order to have the upper hand in chases. Your stamina does drain slower than survivors, but you've got way less stamina than them. So you can't just run at people and win, you do actually have to think about the moves you're making. Luckily for you though, all the killers have really strong M1s. Springtraps does like 34 damage. So if you catch up to someone, you do take a massive chunk of their HP. Springtrap specifically has an axe that he swings at survivors, but he also has an ability where he can throw it. If it hits a survivor, it slows them down. But if he misses it, it's on the floor and you have to physically go and pick it up, which I do like. Also, if you don't have your axe, you actually just punch survivors, which actually does less damage, which means you basically have to stop and pick it up if you missed. if you do hit someone, the axe just stays in them for a certain period of time until I think you kill someone. I think that's when you get it back. Like I said, it's a cool gimmick. You actually have to think about when you're throwing your axe, because it can really hurt you in chase if you miss. You know, on the subject, we might as well talk about just what else Springtrap can do. Springtrap also has the ability to place traps around the map. Basically, he just kneels down, puts a bear trap down, and then walks away. An ability I didn't use, but got lots of clips of, is basically Springtrap. He howls into the moon, I guess, and it makes the screen go black for a couple of seconds. I'm pretty sure this gives him speed, and it also makes it so that survivors obviously will struggle to see where Springtrap is. Overall, from what I've played, the game has fantastic potential. It's enjoyable, and it's not a steep learning curve. I can easily see it being on the same pedestal as Forsaken once all of its issues have been fixed, which we're going to talk about now. Remember when I talked about the timer a couple of minutes ago? I think it's quite a cool take on a timer in an async game. Rather than it just being a timer that ticks down, it's like a clock, like in the FNAF games. The only issue with this clock, like I mentioned earlier, is how slow the time goes. You remember that match I talked about earlier? Well, a similar thing also happened again, so it clearly wasn't an isolated incident. I also felt the timer's clunkiness in my killer matches. There was a killer match where I didn't get a single kill for like 2 minutes, and then it left the timer at about 3 AM. Now you might think that really hurt me, but no. The rest of the match was just a snowball, because most of the objectives were done. They just couldn't make the timer go down any faster, and as long as I was getting a kill every 40 seconds, there was pretty much nothing the survivors could do about it. Another problem I have is the stamina system. Now it's very similar to Forsaken and Die of Death, so you're probably thinking what's wrong with it, but then you realise, looping. Looping will definitely be an issue for this game if the stamina system or killer stamina stats aren't tweaked a bit. It doesn't help that maps are covered, and I mean like covered in loop areas and places you can start chase. It can make playing on maps really frustrating, as you have to worry about, oh, when's the next time he's going to switch up the loop? Something I didn't mention earlier is that there's a mechanic around doors. Basically, you can block off a door with your body to stop the killer from getting through. Now, this mechanic is, I assume, meant to make it so that if you have a teammate running, you can block the door and, like, buy them time. And in practice, yeah, I'd argue it can do that quite well. But there's a big issue with these that I've noticed, is that you can just wait for the killer to M1 you once when you're blocking the door, and then you can just run. They still get N-lag, and the door doesn't break down, so basically, you can just switch up the door every now and then, combine with the loops, and basically never get caught by the killer. It's ridiculous. Don't you worry, the map layouts don't just screw over the killer, but they screw over the survivors as well. There's, like, all the maps have loads of dead zones, some being, like, huge. Literally, the only reason these exist is for them to put a generator on. So, you have entire areas of the map with only one way to enter and one way to exit, just everywhere. It makes the maps feel way bigger than they need to be, because there's so much just unused space. They could easily just cram in the generators and fix the map playouts. And the worst part about this is that it's almost like they knew, because there's a setting called Show Barriers where if you enable it, it puts these big white boxes that you've been seeing in my footage above everything you can't walk through. I will admit this does help, but like, just fix the maps. It's annoying because all the killers have ranged moves, which means you do need to be paying attention to them as well. But like, you also need to pay attention to what's in front of you, so you don't get zoned by accident. I'm sure this will be less of a problem as people learn the map layouts, and hopefully some map fixes, but from what I've played, I died multiple times just because I accidentally cornered myself and didn't realise, because why would that be a dead end? Why would this room not have another exit? More of my stupidity was put on full display with some of my pet peeves I have with this game. Starting with the menus. Now the menus are actually really well designed, but like, I have one problem. When you're checking a character's description and you click on another character, it brings you to the description page for them, which I think most people would probably think that's pretty useful. But, like, there was, like, 4 rounds where I didn't know why I couldn't switch my class, and then realized, oh, right, there's a back button, and I pressed it and saw the big equip button, and I was like, oh. Like I said, it probably just shows I'm stupid more than anything, but, like, it's still annoying. Like, they should just put an equip button separated from the menu so you can just equip and unequip whenever you want. Maybe that's me just complaining too much, but no, I digress. Another stupid thing is that when you're running and you stop moving, you, like, slide, like Luigi in a Mario game. Like, why? It just, if you don't know there's the thing, it will just screw you over in chase because you randomly just slip and slide everywhere. It was manageable once I figured out, oh, that's a thing. But, like, why is this in the game? Why is this in the game? Alright, anyway, I've calmed down now. In conclusion, this game has a lot of potential and could easily be really good. Heck, even past Forsaken, maybe, if the devs fix some of these issues. My main problems are the stamina and maps. Especially the maps. Because these two problems go hand in hand. Like, a bad stamina system wouldn't be terrible, but, like, it also is combined with the fact that the maps seem to be designed purposefully to be confusing and to be full of loops. But I imagine in the coming weeks or months, a lot of these problems will be ironed out as they do new things with the game. Overall, I was actually really surprised with how much I enjoyed the game. As much as I love Forsaken, it was nice to see a different take on the genre. I think this game will go far, like how Forsaken did, especially with its massive player base it has right now. I don't see why it won't continue to do well, given how much love and passion has been put into it. Especially because the devs also have big plans for new classes and new killers. I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Also, killer hitboxes are very stupid. Like, what the hell is this?